players are left to believe he's dead, and that someone actually took this character's life in a Mario game. Not poofed away, canonically killed off. Just what's on the tape? It's never stated, but it's clear the contents aren't something either party wants to make obvious. Koopa Koot makes Mario promise to keep the ordeal under wraps, and Goomba becomes noticeably flustered when asked, admitting he can't reveal that information at the moment, probably because his wife is there, and it's porn. It was great though. When you realize that bandaged patch on his chest is where his heart is supposed to be, it's disturbing to think about how exactly it became separated in the first place. It's true that magic exists in the game's universe, and it could have been teleported out via Magic Koopa spell, but that doesn't explain any wound that needs covering. Was this a surgical procedure then? Considering Bowser is stated to be the one that made him invincible, we can probably assume it wasn't done in a clean way. Anyway, the first of this line of amazing games is Paper Mario on the N64, and it's my favorite in the series. Why not the fan favorite 1000 Year Door? That's a video for another time. We're here today to search under the radar and uncover the more mature themes this game presents.
Mario!
Right before the initial Switch announcement in October of 2016, when the Wii U was on life support in the hospital wing at Nintendo headquarters in Kyoto, a tear-bound Shigeru Miyamoto finally pulled the plug on his underselling console. But in the throes of death, the Wii U's will ejected from its disc slot, a final wish to port over all its hit games to the system's successor for a second chance at life. Speaking of the internet, let's move on to the wonderful world of online multiplayer, where Nintendo initially got heat in only allowing for random matchmaking, so the team promised that a future update would support play with friends. Finally, I can play with all my friends. The really bad stuff though, the bottom of the barrel trash, and what the boo button is for, are the ones that treat the player unfairly. Like a maze of doors where picking the wrong one costs a life. It could also be an angry child's magnum opus of terrible.
Mario?
Today I'll be discussing the more adult content of 1000 Year Door, a game that, like I mentioned in the first video, hosts a literal gallows in the center of the hub world. Welcome to Rogueport, a run-down, crime-centered city where it really isn't out of place to think it was used for lynching at one point in time. Though unlike the paradise that was Isle Delfino, the few that find homes here are part of a yakuza, mobster or mafia outside of Japan, crime ring known as the Pianta Syndicate. This act of human head spiking is seen in media often as warnings for trespassers, an authority symbol, or trophies of war, and stems in inspiration from real-world examples throughout human history. Speaking of historical practice, the European version of the game removed one of two interaction animations for Mario, that being his raising an arm up in the air. This was obviously not the intention, but it bared enough resemblance to the Nazi salute to be taken out by the localization team, and that is at least worth mentioning. To wrap up violence implications, there is a heavily implied murder scene left in the Japanese release. While just a messy shed internationally, this uncensored version features a chalk outline of what looks like a toad, complete with a pool of blood. Later on in the game, Cortez the Pirate King utilizes a similar move in his battle, though instead of eating crowd members, he absorbs their souls. How horrific. I don't know about you, but all this talk of death is putting me in a mood. To kick off sexual references, let's not stray far away from Hooktail, as she very oddly takes a chance at bribing Mario into indulging in a fetish. You heard that right, the dragon seriously offers a foot-spelling session, and insists that people pay good money for this. Yes, it's as shocking as it sounds, and the player will fittingly get the option to say, "That's disgusting." Thankfully, even if you accept, she'll simply attack by biting Mario. If only it was a foot stomp like you sick people wanted. Moving on to a more normal sensuality, Princess Peach in this game is actually naked on 2 separate occasions, with option for more if the player desires. Speaking of Madame Flurry, I've commented on her before in another video, but wow. Her design, being a wind spirit, reveals a voluptuous body with nothing but a necklace covering her bosom. Mario needs to grab hold of her in order for her to blow. Yep, you've got the idea. To quote Nintendo Power magazine, "We're not touching that one with a 10-foot pole." It's also mentioned that Flurry squashes enemies with her stage presence.
Mario!
Well, the plumber hardly falls short on kisses, but he shouldn't desire more than that, as it's as far as the games are willing to go.
No!
Come on, Peach, the man can only eat so much cake.
Mario!
And for a little break from the darker topics, we have another tale from Garson, this time gossiping about the ancients and their supposed passion for love. Sorry, I meant hot, burning passion, capitalized. He even whispers about an ancient sage the player meets early on, Merlumina, and her particularly spicy love life. So, if all the ancients were so passionate about love, and Merlumina was the most promiscuous, just what is she romantically competing against? Well, if you remember the Samur Kingdom and its 100 soldiers, these fighters are said to be the children of King Samur and Merlumina's younger sister. If her sister gave birth to 100 kids, and Merlumina is the one with a spicy love life, we can get a glimpse of just how passionate this tribe really was. Take that in for a minute. Speaking of, Garson goes on to say, the 100 princes and their royal parents ushered in a new era of prosperity. Imagine all the budding romances with 100 strapping princes around. My goodness, who would have expected that kind of dialogue and topic from this series?
Mario?
In a section of the 8th circle, Fraud, fortune tellers are punished via their heads being permanently contorted by having them physically twisted around their bodies. This is because they tried to see into God's future, an attempt at usurping him, so they now have to spend eternity not even being able to see in front of themselves. Fortune tellers and sorcerers are extremely important NPCs in the first 3 Paper Mario games, so think of what destiny awaits them in this afterlife next time you want to support their business. This also means that the little girl in Flipside that wants to be a fortune teller is already a damned soul. Submerging oneself in this unholy water and sinking to the bottom is even more nightmarish than 100 spider memes, as disembodied hands slowly circulate and chase Mario. They can't be defeated, and have a sole intent of pulling you deeper in the depths of this hellscape. Am I exaggerating? Of course, but listen to this quote-unquote music. While still on the topic of the Samur guys, there's also Staggering Dizzy Fuzzy, a name referencing the well-known hallucinogenic feeling level in Yoshi's Island named Touch Fuzzy Get Dizzy. This classic course has a gimmick that, if coming into contact with these spores, will cause Yoshi's pupils to become dilated. The screen will become visually distorted with a twisting, wavy effect and flashing rainbow colors. Since Yoshi's movement is also disoriented, and the enemy class that only these fuzzies fall under is called Dude, I'm Freaking Out on This, it's clearly inspiration, so it's always funny to see Nintendo calling back to something that's so blatantly adult.
Mario!
The very first attempt by the King of Koopas is from Super Mario Bros. Peach Hime Kaiushutsu Dai Sakusen, translating roughly to the great mission to rescue Princess Peach. He's more whiny than anything, but wants nothing more than his future wife to be happy. Which, off topic, makes me think. In Super Mario Odyssey you collect Power Moons, in Mario 64 it's stars, and in Sunshine it's suns. So, if Odyssey's final boss has setting on the moon, and in 64 it's on a star-shaped platform, why doesn't Sunshine's last encounter take place on the sun? Super Mario Adventures seems to also be tied with Super Paper Mario for most attendees at his wedding, considering just how much of the Koopa army we see making an appearance at both events. His followers aren't even invited in Odyssey, which makes me question how their loyalty remains intact. To be fair though, it is a much more difficult destination to arrive at. Can't afford the employee travel costs.
Mario!
Warp doors are an example of a basic stage part becoming complicated when factoring in multiple players. Retrieving a key and unlocking the door sounds simple enough, but when everyone is fighting over it to get to the other side first, it becomes a headache. Here I was right at the end of the map and so close to the flagpole. I had no chance of winning at this point, but it's super important to at least tie with your competitors to avoid a massive score decrease. Instead of, doing that, I miss my opportunity to jump. The water level lowers and I sink like a fool, while everyone laughs at my demise. For shame. Number 7, Dry Boned. Reveling in sweet victory is complemented only by playing dirty. The fastest path to victory in Versus is found by screwing over other players, so it can be quite the blood or lava bath.
Mario!
What really turned Green Mario into the better brother is a starring role in a horror parody game of his own. I said his own horror parody game, not horrific parody of itself, Luigi's Mansion. This poor girl is one of only 2 portrait ghosts with an explicit cause of death, the other being Lugs the Glutton, having eaten himself to death and still left unsatisfied. There is a picture suggesting Chauncey, like the others, was once living and therefore had to have died. Perhaps Nintendo realized or thought that killing babies was too far, so they covered it up with his bio. Chauncey was born a ghost?
Mario?
That's yet another helping of existential terror for you, spending eternity framed and immobile, with your mind still going. The detached head then hovers around with white eyes rolled back while spitting ice at you. And that's the second most terrifying floating head in the entire franchise.
Have you seen Luigi?
With all this nightmare fodder, you'd think that something from this list scared me back when I was a kid playing. But that wasn't exactly the case. It was instead something unintended. A glitch that terrorized little Thane.
Mario! Mario!
Mario! Mario! Oh! Oh! What the heck? He's in the real world! What is this? Mario's gone missing too?
Mario!
Their name in Japan is Boo-Boo-san, or Mr. Boo-Boo, similarly named from the sounds pigs apparently make, which is hilarious. Poor things though, nobody asked if they wanted to be hatched into existence. They're all just scared little oinks, only knowing a life in containment, to then be thrust out into the cruel wilderness. We can only assume they're left to be hunted for the precious items they carry, just like the whackers of this series on the brink of extinction. Let us all take a moment and question the moral integrity of this little oink farm in Toad Town. Moment of silence, please.